everyone, and welcome back to another day here at the Damage Report. I am John Adarola. I, and probably you, are still under lockdown, but we have a very special treat for you to close out the week. Joining us once again, Anna Kasparian. How's it going?
Pretty
See,
good.
You're dancing,
Pretty good.
but we should be dancing because it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I slept through my alarm. And so I woke up about 45 minutes before the main show had its production meeting. And I'm the executive producer of that show, which was a disaster. And by the way, I have to be camera ready, right? So as I'm trying to do this meeting that I'm totally unprepared for, I'm just doing whatever I can to my face. So I know, for those of you watching right now, I get it. I probably have too much blush on or something. Please forgive me. I'm fired up and I'm ready to talk about the news.
No, that is awesome. I also, by the way, slept through both my phone alarms and my Alexa alarm a few days ago, and my wife woke me up way ahead of the show, but it's the first time. I've always, ever since I've started doing this show and I'm the host, I've dreaded, at some point, I'm just not going to wake up and there's not going to be a show. And we came very close, if not for my wife.
No, you have a good wife, though, John, real quick. Because, so when I woke up today, I always wake up before my partner, Christian. And so when I woke up today, way too late, I open my eyes and I look over and I see him and he's just smiling at me. I'm like, why didn't you wake me up? He's like, because you never sleep like this and you look so peaceful. I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, bother me.
Yeah, well, peace was right out the door. But that's very nice of him. That's straight out of a movie or something. Well, anyway, thank you for being here, and everyone else, thank you as well. I know that a lot of you are already here. Please hit the like button and share the stream if you haven't already, so that more people know that the stream's actually active. They can get involved in the conversation, which is taking place not only in the YouTube comments, which we are doing everything we can to maintain as a place you will actually want to be. But you can also send us super chats. You can send us tweets at hashtag TDRLive, and we're also live on Twitch as well. So we will be responding to those as we go through the show. A little bit of tech behind the scenes. Let us know. I think I fixed the issue with video reverb in the audio. I think today it's going to sound good, hopefully. And so we've got a lot of stories that we're going to be talking about. Also, we will be closing out the show, as we always do on Fridays, with our Garbage People of the Week. Anna has picked one, and so I'm very excited to see that. And we will have the Community Garbage Person of the Week as well. Before we get started, I want to let you know that we are continuing with our fundraising drive. If you can participate in helping keeping TYT going financially during all of the chaos, tyt.com/go is a place to do that. Anything you can contribute is much appreciated, and people have been very supportive so far during the lockdowns, which obviously, you can see are continuing here, and so your continued support would be much appreciated. With that, Anna, why don't we jump into some of the news?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Next Friday, Donald Trump is done with this whole pretending. The last vestiges of caring about the pandemic, he's back to his rallies. And Trump's Friday rally will occur at the BOK Center, or Bank of Oklahoma Center, which has a capacity of over 19,000 people. And he's bragged recently that we have never had a seat empty, which is a lie, but that's what he says. And that apparently will be the goal next Friday. 19,000 people during a pandemic that is still claiming close to 1,000 people's lives every single day. Now, outwardly, he doesn't seem to care at all about that, but he is concerned about one thing, and that is legal liability. And that is why, to register for the rally on the campaign's website, supporters must agree that they will not sue if they contract a fatal illness at it. And here's a picture of that. You can't hold Donald J. Trump for president or the BOK Center or anybody else liable if you get sick, if your organs are permanently damaged, as COVID is wont to do, if you lose your life, if you spread it to someone else. They want you to know, don't look for any restitution from them. What do you think, Anna?
I think that this is exactly what Donald Trump and his campaign would do. Donald Trump made it clear that he refuses to hold a rally where social distancing is taking place because he wants the crowd to look big. Remember, he's a hype man. The only thing he really understands and is good at, as much as I hate to say it, is optics and optics of support for him, right? So I don't say optics in general because he's a disgusting pig, and I think most people can see that. But I'm just talking about, manufacturing mass support for his presidency. That's what he wants to do. So when he was told by, the state of North Carolina that they would definitely force him to implement social distancing during the Republican National Convention, he freaked out about it and is now moving it to Florida. But there is one other reason. There's been some polling in Florida indicating that support for him has gone down. So I think that factored into his decision to move the convention to Florida as well. But he still wants this image of giant crowds showing up to support him. And that's what this is really about. And he doesn't care about his own supporters at all. He sees them nothing more than tools for his own personal enrichment. That's it.
Yeah, I agree he wants the image. I also think he wants the crowd. I think he wants to hear a wave of ignorant, hateful people cheering for him. That's what he wants, too. Mm-hmm. And he certainly doesn't care. It's been an amazing eye-opening to see that both Donald Trump and Fox News, the way that they've acted since this pandemic, they don't... it's not just that they hate people who aren't like them. They hate their own people. They don't care if they live or die, and it's really been amazing. And they're acknowledging with these waivers that they know that there's a good chance of that. And the thing is, it's like some people are just like saying, they see this headline, they say slam dunk, haha. No, look, events are going to have waivers like this. I get that. But be responsible. Don't pack as many people in, and have the events to the extent they are necessary. This rally is 100% optional. Doesn't have to happen at all. And so if you have a business that requires people to be in close proximity and you have waivers, I think that that's wrong on some level, but I sort of get it, at least from your point of view. But this doesn't need to happen. It certainly doesn't need to happen at this particular time on June 19th, specifically seeming to have been set up to offend people. And by the way, you mentioned that they're going to have, they're going to have their convention in Jacksonville, and apparently they're going to have that on the anniversary of a KKK mass assault against civil rights demonstrators. Now, I know what racists will say in response. Hey, you can't, what are we supposed to do? Almost every day is an anniversary of some sort of racist assault. That's sort of the problem.
That's true.
That is sort of the problem with America, that you seemingly can't choose a day where there wasn't some big mass beating or mass murder against Black Americans.
Absolutely. I want to add one more thing to this because I think it's important. I've seen this, in my opinion, insincere and disingenuous argument all over the internet by people who disagree with the mass protests that are going on throughout the country. So the argument is, well, you lefties had a problem with opening bars and restaurants in the middle of this pandemic. And, you didn't trust people to decide for themselves whether or not they can safely go to these establishments. And now all of a sudden you're so supportive of these mass protests where social distancing isn't being implemented. Listen, everything in life is cost benefit analysis. Yep. Okay. I would argue, and I get it, this is maybe a very divisive, difficult argument to get behind, but I'd argue that fighting to end the brutalization of minorities and especially Black people in this country is important, right? It's a little more important than filling up a bar and having a Bud Light. And so arguably, right? So the fact that they're trying to draw a comparison between getting drunk at a bar or going to a spring break party to this incredible and incredibly necessary movement is just beyond insulting. Mm-hmm. And I just want to be clear about that. I think people who are going out there and protesting understand the risk that they're taking, but they've made a calculation that taking that risk is worth it to spur much needed change in this country. Exactly. And of course, as we've pointed out, the people flooding the bars aren't like, look, we gotta have a bar, but I'm not insane. We're gonna limit how many people are there and we're all gonna wear masks. No, they're just flame on, just do whatever you want. Whereas the people protesting the streets,
are wearing masks. The vast majority of them are being as responsible as they possibly can under these conditions.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
While some of the initial protests were going on in Chicago, apparently a group of more than a dozen cops holed up in a congressperson's office and just had themselves a nice little relaxing time while it was going on. Let's take a look at this. This is footage taken in Representative Bobby Rush's office. There you can see just a bunch of cops lounging around. They're on their phones. Maybe they're tweeting about the protests that are going on literally outside that building. You can see this guy,
oh my God,
both very tired and very new to how couches work. This is like how my dog lays on pillows. Like, only part of his body will be on the pillow. He doesn't seem to get it. Yeah, and then this guy's just, like, what a relaxing time he's having on his phone as the protests are going on. Now, considering what we know about what cops have done at these protests, maybe it's for the best that they were in that building rather than on the front lines engaging with the protesters. But, yeah, 13 of them. Pretty amazing. By the way, it includes not just regular police officers, but 3 of their supervisors. We're supervising the sleeping, the popping of popcorn, the talking on the phone. As many as 13 people, and it's now being investigated. Anno, WTF.
Well, I'm actually really not surprised, because what we've seen throughout the country when it comes to the police response to the protests is that they will be far more harsh and punitive toward peaceful protesters than the people doing the actual looting, because the looting helps them make the point that they want to make, that these protests are supposedly violent, that it's about anarchy and lawlessness. And obviously that's not what this is about. The vast majority of these protesters have been peaceful and have an important point to make. The looters, it's a small, tiny percentage. I know that I sound a little conspiratorial when I say this. I honestly think some of the violence and looting has actually been carried out by plainclothes police officers. And by the way, they're so bad at disguising themselves. Like, it's as if they don't know how civilians dress. Like, civilians don't wear light wash jeans that are like super baggy with like they wear the most ridiculous things that people don't wear. And you can see like the indentation of their handcuffs in their back pocket. Like,
well, maybe they're just kinky.
Yeah, real kinky. You could see the outline of their like bulletproof vest. Like, it's so obvious that they're undercover cops. But look, my point is, this is a symptom of a larger problem that we've seen in policing throughout the country, because some people are asking, well, isn't it a bad idea to defund police? Don't we need the police to keep us safe? But the question is, where have the police really focused their resources? What do they prioritize? Have they prioritized our precious hard-earned tax dollars, okay, toward solving violent crimes, solving rape cases, solving cold cases, homicides. Is that what they're focusing on?
Yeah.
Actually, no. The majority of the resources are focusing on collecting regressive taxes through ridiculous citations, right? Traffic stops. That's where the majority of the money goes. And those traffic stops oftentimes end up deadly for minorities.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we need to fund that type of behavior. I think that what we need to do is hold the police accountable, make sure that they're using the resources that they have toward actual violent crimes in order to keep us safe. And how about we not rely on the cops to do things that they have no expertise in, including dealing with people who are having a mental health breakdown or, dealing with the homeless, which why would the police have any business dealing with individuals who can't afford housing in this ridiculous country? No, we need to actually, take that money and transition it toward programs that help people afford housing. That's where the money should go.
100%. Okay, let's see what's going on in the super chats. Oh, and by the way, sort of what you were talking about the police there. AOC had a great post on her Instagram, I think, about, like people asking her, like, what will the cops look like after we defund them? And she's like, they're going to look like they look in the suburbs, really. They're going to do that sort of thing, and then there's going to be social services for everything else. We already have this model. We just don't have it in a lot of parts of the country. To the extent that the pandemic is being talked about at all, I feel like it's the conversation that we were just having. What effect will the protests have on it? And we don't yet know. Certainly it will be, the source of some spread. I don't think it's going to be much compared to, entire states opening up more than a month ago in a very irresponsible fashion. My frustration right now, Anna, is it really does feel like people have moved on. That they don't care anymore. I know this is the most anecdotal thing imaginable, but we've been walking around our neighborhood this entire time, and for a long time there were a lot of masks. And I still do see masks, but I took my dog to the park, just me and my dog, and there were a bunch of people, and I didn't see one mask on them in a neighborhood that had been taking it seriously. And I worry that everyone has moved on. The fact that 1,000 people are dying every day has been totally normalized. And it just doesn't break through. It's to the point where I tweeted yesterday, we had this like sort of national day of mourning for 100,000 dead. When 2,000 is hit, are we even going to notice? Are we going to acknowledge that? Because we're on track before the end of the year to hit 200,000 at this point.
I'm actually terrified about the upcoming economic collapse because of this virus. Obviously, I'm concerned about the number of people who are going to die because it's not really being talked about anymore. It's not being taken as seriously as it should be. But there are huge issues coming up in the next few months tied to this pandemic that just are not being addressed. And one of my biggest concerns is that there won't be any type of economic relief for ordinary Americans who are still taking this pandemic seriously. There are still companies, TYT for instance, that know the severity of this pandemic. And that's why we're not back in the studio yet, even though many businesses in Los Angeles have already opened, right? I went and had dinner last Saturday at a restaurant. I mean, there was social distancing. We actually ate outside and we had our masks on. The only time we took them off was to put food in our mouth. But, you see all these businesses opening. TYT's like, we're going to take it slow because the examples of states opening up too early have already informed us that, no, you're going to see a significant spike. And what the last thing that we should want is for the entire country to have to shut down again.
Yeah.
But it looks like we're headed in that direction. It looks like more and more people are going to die. And to top it off, the economic issues tied to this pandemic are only going to get worse because of the inaction of our congressional leaders.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell keeps blocking stimulus bills that would extend some of the financial relief that ordinary Americans are receiving right now. For instance, the more robust unemployment program is set to expire in the end of July. What are people going to do if they're still jobless at that point?
Yeah.
And we still have tens of millions of people without jobs. So I know it's a long answer, but there's so many issues tied to this pandemic that are being completely ignored.
Well, Anna, what you need to understand is that the GOP has lost its appetite for further stimulus. I love that they can just have like setting adrift so many people who will die or lose everything can be pitched in the media as they've lost their appetite for more government spending. I mean, they got their trillions that they can give to their buddies. They got that. And they have their tax cuts. They have all that. Yeah, they lost their... It's just an appetite thing, really. Yeah. And just like with the early warnings about coronavirus, we have the early warnings from some responsible politicians about the rent crisis that is coming, that is about that the the eviction and mortgage foreclosure crises that are coming, and they're not doing anything about that. And you said that you fear that we'll have to shut down again. That's obviously the fear, is that if things explode, and we see in some states, Texas 3 days in a row broke its record for number of hospitalizations. That's not just more testing showing more cases, which would be scary enough. That was people in hospitals. But the thing is, we've now had months of a third of the country being indoctrinated to think that the lockdowns were not just a trampling of the Constitution, but they didn't do anything. Tucker Carlson said there's no evidence they had any effect on bending the curve. And so my fear, do I fear that we would need to shut down? Yes, but my fear is we will not shut down, no matter how bad it gets, because so many of their followers now believe it's not necessary, and in fact it kills more people than just staying out there. So I think we're done as a society. A critical mass doesn't care, won't care, no matter how bad it gets.
If I were if I had any power, right? Okay, let's have a fantasy discussion for a second. If I were president of the United States and I had the ability to do this, which I'm pretty sure the president doesn't, right? But let's say I did. I would pass through an executive order a rule that anyone who works in the media or in politics is banned from being invested in the stock market. I get that sounds extreme, but the reason why I bring that up, the reason why I bring it up is because Tucker Carlson is sitting in his comfy, cozy little home studio. He doesn't have to worry about getting sick. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to worry about getting his family members sick. Everyone should be incredibly skeptical of a well-paid anchor, journalist, reporter. None of those titles really apply to Tucker Carlson. Disgusting right-wing talking head who's sitting in the comfort of their own homes, still getting paid a significant amount of money to, talk crap, while encouraging people to get back to work, because he's not going to suffer the consequences. Right now, what he's worried about is, the Dow just dropped over 1,000 points yesterday. My precious stock portfolio is really suffering. We need to get these plebs back to work.
Yeah.
We need to do something to improve my stock portfolio. That's really what this is about, which is why I think that conflict of interest is a big problem when it comes to members of the media, but most of all, our elected officials. None of them should have that conflict of interest. None of them should be invested in any corporation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're gonna serve the American people, serve the American people. Oh, you can't make huge amounts of money at that particular point, even though we know you're gonna get rich afterward. Yeah, you can wait, or you can not serve in elected office. There are other people that can do it. There are other people that want to do it, that have worked for minimum wage their entire life. They'll be happy to do this job if you aren't interested in doing it, if you can't get rich off of it. Okay, so while you and I, best case scenario, got $1,200, and I hope everyone was responsible with it because it's all we got for literally months, there were funds of hundreds of billions of dollars, and in some cases trillions of dollars, set aside for the wealthy, corporations, all of that. Some of it needed to keep certain businesses afloat, and some of it obviously designed to be a slush fund for Steve Mnuchin and the Trump administration to pay off their friends, or possibly themselves. And we have no idea if that's what they're doing because they're not revealing what they're doing with the money. So let's talk about how we got to this point. The over $2 trillion CARES Act signed by Trump in March established the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, with $349 billion in funding for forgivable loans. After the initial capital ran out in less than 2 weeks, lawmakers approved another $300 billion, though over $130 billion of that amount was still left as of Tuesday. So The Small Business Administration has previously released detailed loan information dating back to 1991 for the sort of program that this was based on. We would know what that money was being used for. But apparently, while they initially promised they would continue that, with an SBA spokesperson telling the Washington Post on April 16th that the agency intends to post individual loan data in accordance with the information presently on the SBA website after the entire loan process has been completed. And then on April 17th said, again, that it would do that. It would respond to records requests. Now, Steve Mnuchin says, we believe that that's proprietary information, and in many... Why am I making him sound normal? And in many cases, for sole proprietors and small businesses, it is confidential information. The reason why we're not disclosing the names and amounts, unlike in the program it's based on, is because of that issue. So it's set up based on a program where we get information for hundreds of billions of dollars that are used, understandably. They say they're going to multiple times, but now Steve Mnuchin just wants you to trust him that they're using it wisely.
Okay, so the only group of people to be angry at in this story is Congress, okay? Because this is how the legislation was written by Congress. Congress handed Steve Mnuchin, who is a disgusting person, who has a history of committing fraud with One West Bank in order to foreclose on elderly people and throw them out of their homes. That's what Steve Mnuchin did. And Congress, with the help of Democrats, by the way, signed over our money. This is taxpayer money. Every once in a while, people will write to me and be like, actually, no, this is money that the Federal Reserve is printing out. No. This specific portion of the bill was funded through our money, taxpayer money, the $500 million that was handed over to Steve Mnuchin. That is our money, okay? It's different from what the Federal Reserve is doing. They handed him that money with no strings attached. So please spare me the crocodile tears from Democratic members of Congress. You did that. You did that. Okay, so we need to hold them accountable for it. Republicans, of course they would do it. This is who Republicans are. But Democrats are supposed to be different. And I am not surprised at all that Steve Mnuchin is demonstrating a lack of transparency when it comes to our money and where it went.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say everybody, really soak this story in, because this is the wave of the future. Phase one was... Anna and I do a generally futile job where we report on all the corruption going on. Phase two is we don't even know what it is. I mean, we have a general idea that probably money, like, for all we know, Steve Mnuchin is taking the money. Honestly, we don't know. For all we know, he's investing in companies and then giving them tens of millions of dollars or $1 billion. We have no idea. If Trump gets reelected, like, we already know he's getting rid of the inspectors general. They're getting rid of the leakers. There's no transparency left. It will be a case where things will be happening, crimes will be committed, corruption will be continuing, but we will have no idea that it's actually happening. We certainly won't know the details. Right now, we get no consequences. In the future, we get no information whatsoever.
Yeah, and I want to tie this all back to Black Lives Matter, and for all the naysayers who think that what this movement is about is getting rid of protections and supporting lawlessness and crime. There has been lawlessness and crime at the very top for a long time now. This isn't just about the Trump administration. Obama was supposed to represent hope and change. He was supposed to come in as president, and I fell for this. I will admit, I totally fell for this. I thought he was going to come in and be like, hey, bankers, you guys effed up. You guys destroyed the economy. You guys committed crimes. You committed fraud. You're going to prison. But he didn't do any of that. None of it. Okay? Bankers were bailed out. Corporations were bailed out. And people were angry. It's justified anger. Then under the Trump administration, we got the same thing, but on steroids. That type of criminality continues year after year after year with no consequences for those at the very top. Okay, we have all these members of the Senate who engaged in insider trading. No consequences. Okay, maybe one of them, Richard Burr, is that his name? I just had a brain
Yeah,
fart,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he might. Yeah, Richard Burr might. He's still being investigated. But Kelly
Purely for
Loeffler,
political reasons because of Donald Trump. Like, Loeffler was
exactly.
worse in what she actually did, apparently. Yeah, it's
Yes.
amazing.
And look, I know this is a long rant and a long spiel, but the point that I'm trying to make is that criminality, our law enforcement has turned a blind eye to criminality when it comes to the wealthy for a long time now,
Yeah.
while focusing on BS, broken windows policing, which criminalizes ordinary Americans for nonsense. Okay, for absolute nonsense. I don't care how much weed someone's smoking. I don't care how much of whatever drug anyone's doing. Okay, I don't think that that person should be in prison. I don't think that my tax dollars should go toward criminalizing them. I think my tax dollars should go toward helping them,
Yeah.
rehabilitating them, creating opportunities in communities so people don't feel desperate and down to the point where they turn to drugs to numb the pain. That's what I want.
Yeah. Reasonable.
Anyway.
And look, so we're talking about this. Maybe someone will do the right thing and force accountability on this. Probably not. But this is, you know what this feels to me like? This is the coronavirus of looting stories. It has become so big that people just detach from it. Like, I can't, like, if Trump literally shot someone in the face, that would be a bigger story than him just sitting by while 115,000 people die. That's the way our minds work. You know, when he steals when his son goes on a $75,000 taxpayer-funded sheep shooting mission, that's a bigger story than them stealing hundreds of billions of dollars. It's just the way it works. And it's sick. Yeah, like there was the fake story about a Rolex store being looted. Turns out nothing was actually stolen. That got more news than this will get. Hundreds of billions of dollars. A store with its windows broken where nothing was stolen is a bigger issue of theft than Steve Mnuchin, possibly the person I would trust least, maybe even less than Trump, because he's savvier than Trump to handle this money. Somehow that's how we prioritize. This morning, there was a surprise. Netflix dropped an apparently impromptu Dave Chappelle special called 846 for the time that Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck. And the 27-minute video came with a disclaimer, quote, from Dave, "Normally I wouldn't show you something so unrefined. I hope you understand." And it had a link to the Equal Justice Initiative, a nonprofit organization aimed at ending mass incarceration and racial inequality. It's a 27-minute special, and I absolutely love Dave Chappelle and have my entire life, so I sat down and watched it immediately this morning. And I will say many people watching this probably already have, more will, but I found it to be exactly what Dave Chappelle is Dave Chappelle for. It was honest and raw and brutal and powerful and thoughtful, with an understanding of context and history, and could manage to be funny while at the same time so perfectly describing a moment. And so, yeah, no, Anna, I know, yeah, I want you to talk, but yeah, it was really something. I didn't realize that I needed it, but apparently I did.
Oh, 100%. So it was the first thing I did this morning. So I woke up in a panic because I slept through my alarm, and I had to get ready for the main show's production meeting and, of course, get ready for this show. And I saw your email indicating that we would talk about his special. And of course, I hadn't seen it yet. So immediately I clicked on it and I'm like, I need to watch this before I even shower. And it was exactly how you described it. I didn't understand or realize how much I needed something, that type of commentary from someone as powerful and as high profile as Dave Chappelle. Because one of the things that's, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, one of the things that's been eating me up like throughout this week has been the reposting and sharing of Candace Owens and her disgusting commentary about George Floyd. Like seeing people who I know personally post that on their Facebook pages and give it any type of credibility or any type of power has been heartbreaking, infuriating. I've had to stop myself from going off on family members. And it's just to hear someone as high profile as Dave Chappelle call her a see you next Tuesday, and explain why she's such a terrible person felt so good. Because of course there are progressives, there are even liberals, like, you know, all over YouTube. They all have their little independent shows, and we've been screaming from the rooftops about how terrible Candace Owens is. But finally, we have someone as powerful as Dave Chappelle calling her out and explaining why she's full of crap. And so, and the best part about it is Dave Chappelle is loved and respected by many of the people I personally know who shared that video.
Yeah.
And so I can complain about them posting that video all day, and they'll give me the middle finger. They don't care, right? You're just a lib, you're just a progressive, you're a radical, like leftist or whatever. But Dave Chappelle, someone who has entertained them and managed to make them laugh in so many terrible times in America, they respect him, and it's important for someone like him to speak out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, when he went to mentioning her, look, obviously it was two of the funniest moments in the special. Let's keep it real, even though it's him. The thing about Dave Chappelle, and it often makes him laugh on camera, is when he goes from like impassioned order to like the most juvenile insult. It just kills me, but it was funny. Now I know on some level she probably, like, to a grifter, being mentioned even in an attack like that is the goal. So to some extent, I'm sure that she likes being in the news cycle for that. On the other hand, especially because I know that she's a sort of grifter who is pretending to believe things that she doesn't, and in all likelihood, probably is not that far in that direction. You can't, if you're an American, the vast majority of Americans obviously look up to Dave Chappelle, would love for Dave Chappelle to think kindly of them. It's gonna hurt her. And considering all the damage she's done, I'm gonna take a little bit of schadenfreude from that. So, my favorite part of this story is that it will inevitably turn into Candace Owens crying about how what Dave Chappelle said was offensive and it was mean, whatever. She's going to start crying about how it's unfair to her, right? And I love it because, like, her whole brand was built on, I'm a Black woman who happens to love conservatives, and I have a right to speak my mind. Okay, cool. Speak your mind then. But Dave Chappelle gets to speak his mind too, and you're not a victim, right? Free speech is not a constitutional right that's only afforded to people like Candace Owens. We all have a right to speak, right? And Dave Chappelle is no exception. Oh, no. I will go you one better on that. Not only will she say that it's offensive, even though she pretends to never understand why libs get offended by things, she will be brought onto Tucker Carlson's show to respond to this, and they will both present it as him censoring her by criticizing her, because that's what free speech means to them. Yeah, and look, go watch it if you haven't already seen it. It's on YouTube, by the way. I know someone in the comments said it's only on Netflix. No, it's on YouTube. You can watch it free. You don't even need anything. And I will say, I know that we have to give these caveats. Obviously, there are things that Dave Chappelle has focused on in his comedy that I don't necessarily agree with. But there's no one like him. There's other comedians that I like, other comedians that do social commentary and politics that I like and respect, but he is in a league of his own. He is the sort of thing that gets called a national treasure. Like, he, you know, I'm so glad that he came back from his extended break. Yeah, no, it's just go take a look. It's and it was filmed on the 6th. Like, he put it together so quickly. Like, he's not just funny, he is so sharp, so smart, so thoughtful about the vast majority of issues, not everything. So you might recall that back when Donald Trump was inaugurated as president, that still feels weird to say, and moved into the White House, his entire family did not move with him. In fact, his youngest son, Barron, and his wife, Melania, did not move there. And they said that it was because of family things, had to wrap stuff up in New York and all of that. Apparently that, to some extent, was true, but new details are coming out from a book by Mary Jordan saying that that's not the principal reason why Melania was loath to move to the White House with Donald Trump. Now understand that at this time, the campaign had been full of harsh news about Donald Trump's alleged sexual indiscretions and infidelities, from the grab them by the, you know where we're going, Access Hollywood tape, to an affair with Playboy playmate Karen McDougal that was described in great detail. Melania apparently learned new details from the media coverage, according to Mary Jordan. Now, she apparently needed time to cool off and also to amend her financial arrangement with Trump, what Melania referred to as taking care of Barron. So she apparently wanted and felt she had the leverage now to renegotiate her prenuptial agreement with Donald Trump. Which is true. She did have that leverage. He can't afford to have his wife divorce him, conceivably, in his first year as president. That would be embarrassing, and we know Donald Trump would never do anything embarrassing. But anyway, Anna, what do you think about this? About that she, initially refused to move with him until he gave her a better financial setup?
I have 4 words for you. Art of the deal.
Yes.
So... No, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, let's just get the caveats out of the way. Melania's trash. I have no respect for her. She's a terrible person. Okay, now that that's out of the way, awesome. Wow, that is some cutthroat negotiating. I'm proud of her in this regard. Honestly, I don't think my brain operates that way. You know what I'm saying? Which is why this update or this development never even crossed my mind. And I have no doubt that if I were in her position, first of all, I would never be in her position. I would never marry anyone for money. I just think that I'm really bad at faking things. I can't fake
and she has
orgasm.
To fake things on a monthly basis. Yeah.
Just, so I couldn't do it. But honestly, I love that she saw this opportunity. She understands the importance of cutthroat negotiating, and she did it. I mean, and I also like the fact that everything was up for negotiation. Oh, you want to hold my hand in public, bitch? That's what you want? That's an extra $100 million.
Oh,
sorry.
Maybe. Wow. Yeah, it is cutthroat, and the book isn't out yet, but it apparently does sketch her out to be that sort of person, kind of cutthroat, that she's quite similar to Donald Trump in that sense, in the fact that she's a loner. They describe how she multiple times has just cut off everyone that she knew when she started a new part of her life, when she moved to America, when she moved away from New York. Initially, she was just done with everything, just restarts. And it helps her to hide things about her past, because the book also reveals that we already knew that she'd lied about her bachelor's degree. She apparently has lied about the languages that she speaks. She doesn't speak 5 languages or anything like that, but it's a good bit of branding for her. And a number of other things. This is based on more than 100 interviews with people all the way back from her days in school in Slovenia. But anyway, yeah, she apparently, I want to give you more details on the actual renegotiation. By mid-2018, she'd apparently renegotiated. She'd been looking out for Barron's future by making sure he had dual citizenship in Slovenia, which will position him to work in Europe for the Trump organization when he comes of age, assuming he wants to. And why does everyone in that family work for that? Is it that they can't get hired anywhere else? Anyway, she wanted proof in writing that when it came to financial opportunities and inheritance, Barron would be treated as more of an equal to Trump's oldest 3 children. But why wouldn't he? Supposedly, he's Trump's son. Why wouldn't he want to take care of Barron?
Trump is a trash father. He is a deadbeat father. I mean, just ask Tiffany Trump. So, what she did there with Barron, I think, is important. It's sad that it needs to be negotiated that way. God, rich people have such sad lives when you really think about it. Right? Really think about it. When I think about what makes me happy on a day-to-day basis, it's those moments I have with my family. It's the moments that I have with my brother and sister-in-law and my nieces. And it's this pure, unmitigated love. It's just, I feel like my heart's going to explode, right? And I feel like this is my crew. We have each other's backs. We love each other so much. That's what life is, guys. That's what life is about. The money is not going to keep me warm at night. Yes, to some extent it will. It'll put a roof over your head and it'll get paid for the heating bill, whatever. But my point is, at the level of wealth that Melania Trump is already enjoying, right? Like, a little more money isn't going to make her happy. Like, she's chosen this life that makes no sense to me. Like, I love going to bed with my husband. Like, I look forward to it. Like, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, yes. I can't imagine being married to someone for money who I find, like, I have no attraction to, no love for. Like, you deal with it every day. Ugh.
Yeah.
But that's the life that she chose for herself.
Yeah.
Gross.
Well, look, zooming out from them, let's just say it. Look, there are millionaires, there are billionaires that are seemingly better than other billionaires, but fundamentally, they are sick people. Maybe that's, what, am I not supposed to say that? Is that not polite? But being this devoted to money, to the point where you have 1,000 times more money than could possibly have any impact, any measurable impact on your life, that you just hoard. Like, we see Smaug in the Hobbit movies, and we think, well, what does that dragon need all that gold for? It can't even buy anything. But we're surrounded by Smaugs. They're in New York, and they're in LA, and they live in Malibu and all of that. They're people who have a fundamental sickness, an addiction to meaningless wealth. Meaningless to them, could be very meaningful to other people. And let's bear in mind that they pervert and abuse and twist the system to set it up in a way that will produce those outcomes for them, while denying any sort of discernible improvement in the quality of life of so many people along the way. It's Friday, and that means it's time to take out the trash. So, Anna, I'm very excited to have you here. I've got my can, and I know you're ready to throw some trash by the wayside. Who's your garbage person for this week?
Well, my garbage person for this week is a failed NASCAR driver. His name is Ray Ciccarelli, and he is upset about the fact that NASCAR has taken a stand in banning any type of Confederate imagery from their races. Now, NASCAR historically has had some issues with people donning the Confederate flag, which is incredible because the Confederates fought against the Union and they lost. So they were essentially celebrating
failure,
traitorous losers. Yes, exactly. And so this particular race car driver, Ciccarelli, is upset about it and is like, I don't like it, so I'm going to quit. Except here's the thing. He hasn't won a single race. Not even one, guys. Not even one. He has raced 32 times, 0 wins, 0. So look, Ciccarelli, I know that you want to blame your quitting on NASCAR doing the right thing, but we all know the truth. We all know you're a failure, which makes you... Ready? Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Garbage.
I think it went. I think it went into the trash, actually. Very well done. I love the theatrics. Yeah. Look, I don't know anything about him. I'm assuming that even a lot of NASCAR fans probably don't because, you know, of his record or whatever. Like, I have no problem. I'm not like Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson. I have no problem with athletes taking a stand for politics. I judge them based on the stand that they take. You can leave for a lot of reasons. You can leave because of the continued presence previously of Confederate flags. But especially if you're going to say, as he did in his little going away thing, that I have no attachment to it. I got nothing. Then why are you the one that's the hill that you're dying on? Isn't that a little bit weird? Yeah, and you know, I don't want to reiterate all the things about the Confederate flag again, but it's the most bizarre thing in America to venerate the battle flag that had been lost for decades, that they only brought back because of the civil rights movement, to venerate these losers when you have an American flag that you say constantly you love and worship and adore. Use that one. I don't know. It's just weird. NASCAR is shockingly doing the right thing. Let's encourage people to move in the right direction. Anyway, it's a bit of a, like, him leaving when he hadn't even apparently placed in any of these races. It's a little bit of like a tree falls in the forest, but no one's around to hear it thing. Like, if he had just left but not tweeted, would we have known? We'll never know.
Would we have known how much of a loser he is and how he hasn't won a single race?
I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, you should have left with at least a little bit of dignity, but you just couldn't do it, could you?
For my garbage person of the week, I have someone who has made a few appearances. Might be the first leading one for me. And it is this individual with just a great picture. Nailed it. I don't blame the photographer. I blame the material. But why today? And I'll be tossing him in the trash soon. Why Tucker Carlson? Well, Tucker Carlson, in the midst of a deadly pandemic and a nationwide movement to reform law enforcement, has decided all of that is nonsense and a sideshow. I am going to hone in on what's really going on, and it's that damn porn. Here's what he had to say about OnlyFans.
It is the purest, most degrading form of economic exploitation. When you have nothing left to sell, you sell your body. The people who broker that sale are called pimps. Healthy societies do not celebrate pimps. They put pimps in prison. And yet our pimps receive fawning profiles in daily newspapers. Our media greet this human tragedy like it's progress. It's the new frontier in the gig economy. Imagine anything more decadent than that. The PhD student is onto something. For many Americans, prostitution is all that's left. America's politicians and finance moguls shipped millions of secure, good-paying, middle-class jobs to foreign countries. That might be the single biggest story of the last 70 years in this country. How and why they did that and how much they made by doing it might make for a fascinating series of news articles. In fact, it might be worth putting on the front page of the New York Times every day for the next decade until we fix it. But our leaders have no interest in talking about economics. That's why they push racial division. So here we are. Our daughters are selling themselves for food and rent, and BuzzFeed is telling us it's cool.
Okay, so let's just get this out of the way. For saying that the economic downfall of America is the top story, but refusing for you to ever actually talk about what could be done to reverse it, instead talking about how people who are just trying to get along in a difficult time where 40 million plus people have lost their lives, for them to want to, relatively free of exploitation, free of physical danger, to show themselves online, to be paid, and for you to attack them for that, that is why today Tucker Carlson ends up in the trash. And I have a lot more to say about this, but Anna, what do you think?
Well, I actually want to give Tucker Carlson some credit for finally being the only person at Fox News who is calling out the top pimp, Roger Ailes, who victimized all sorts of women just so they can have a job, do what they've worked to do, which is anchor on cable news. He victimized them, brutalized them, threatened them, raped them, sexually assaulted them. So finally, someone at Fox News is calling out that pimp, that sexual predator, Roger Ailes. That's what it was about, right? That's what he was talking about?
There was a bit. His face distracts me, so sometimes I black out. But anyway, yeah, no, he's not interested in that.
He's not, yeah.
And the thing is, look, if you believe that there are people who are being forced against their will to do that, okay, that's certainly an issue. We want to get rid of all of that sort of exploitation. I mean, some would say, advocates for people who engage in sex work say that this is far safer for them. Obviously, they can do it in their own home. They don't endanger themselves. But here's the thing. Let's say that you don't care about all of that, and you only care about it's wrong that people are doing this. And let's say you even put it in his way of saying, what could be more decadent than that? What a weird air sort of thing to say. I don't understand any of that.
Yep.
How about this? How about you be a little bit understanding of how we got there? For many of these people, this is a relatively new thing because they've lost their jobs. Over the course of 3 months, 40 million plus people have lost their jobs. And some people in media, like Anna and myself, have been saying, government, do something to help these people. But you don't care about that. You don't push for it. You barely even talk about the possibility that something like that could be done. All you've talked about is about how we need to send people back out there into the meat grinder to die from coronavirus. You haven't been advocating for them to be helped. So now they are helping themselves. And if you think that that's truly tragic, maybe have a little bit of understanding. Don't just demonize those people and try to get the platforms where they can at least do this shut down Advocate for something that will actually help them. This is the perfect example of the fake populism of Tucker Carlson. He uses words like elites and decadent and capitalism, and it makes you sound as if he's on the side of the people. But nowhere in there is a solution that actually benefits working people. It's a distraction. He's telling his old white conservative audience, your women, your daughters are selling themselves, and that's the real problem. Well, what should we do about it? I don't know. He doesn't have any solutions. He just talks about decadence. He mentioned Bill Clinton somehow. No, those 40 million people lost their lives not under Bill Clinton, under Donald Trump. Some of it might have been avoidable. But to the extent that any of it could have been avoided, he didn't do anything and you didn't push him to. That's why it's such a dodge. It's so fake. It's such a waste of time.
It's even worse than that, though, John, because look, I know Tucker Carlson looks stupid. He has that dumb look on his face all the time. But he's not. He's actually, in my opinion, the smartest person on Fox News, because what he does is he touches on a very real problem that the vast majority of ordinary Americans are dealing with right now. The rigged economic system, the redistribution of wealth to the very top. People are desperate. People are angry. People are looking for answers. And what Tucker Carlson does is he validates that emotion and validates that problem, but then directs his audience toward blaming the powerless for why we are where we are. He will then switch over to how dangerous it is to allow asylum seekers and refugees in our country. He'll then pivot to, I don't think that it's a mistake that he mentioned, sex work and the racial issues that we're dealing with in this country in the same segment. Because think about what that brings up in the minds of racists in this country who watch his show, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my sweet, precious white daughter is going to be, victimized. She's going to have to sell her body to these dangerous minorities. Like, I really think that there was a giant dog whistle there.
It's possible.
That we need to be really careful about. But look, my main point is every once in a while, he'll do this whole spiel against Amazon or against some corporation that's been, taking advantage of us, that's been basically destroying small businesses throughout the country. And you'll watch that. And I see libs thinking like, no, he's right. I'm going to share this. I'm going to give him credit. He sounds reasonable. Please don't, because he's not reasonable. What he's doing is very smart, but it's a strategy to garner more hatred toward the so-called others, right? And he is one of the most divisive figures in cable news, and we should be that should be abundantly clear. We should be aware of that.
I agree. Well, those are our garbage people. What does the TDR community think? Well, we posted yesterday on our community tab asking all of you, and let's see, we've got 15,000 votes that came in. And this week, the winner, the GOP, for their silence about protests and protecting Trump. I mean, pretending that they hadn't seen his tweets attacking the 75-year-old peace activist whose skull was cracked open and apparently sustained brain damage, we are now finding out. They got 45% of the vote. Trump, always a popular choice at 21%. The NYPD Union President Mike O'Meara for his pro-police speech at 15%. Buffalo PD for obvious reasons at 11%. And Tucker Carlson, I'm going to say, because this voting happened before the OnlyFans thing, him being triggered by Elmo is probably why he's on there at 8%. But yeah, there's a lot of garbage to go around. I see people in the chat saying we need to rename it to, I think they were saying garbage dump people or, dumpster fire people. We'll look into that. But there's a lot of garbage. And Anna, thank you.
Can we have maybe we should have a less harsh section as well, maybe compost people, we want to see them break down and deteriorate, and then maybe we can use them as fertilizer. But I'm just kidding.
To give you an idea of how brutal Anna is, her less harsh thing is she wants to break you down until you're fertilizer. We've now seen weeks of protests in cities across America and indeed throughout the world. And while some cities and some states have begun to give, inclinations that they might be okay with some sort of reform. Nationally, we're still not seeing much progress. But if reform comes, what form is it likely to come in? What are some of the things that desperately need to be reformed? Joining us now to add some much needed context to all of what's going on across America right now, we've got the 2018 Democratic nominee for Florida Attorney General and the founder of People Over Profits, Attorney Sean Shaw. Welcome to the Damage Report.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here. So we've got a few specific topics that I definitely want to delve into, but what do you make of this moment and the prospect for significant reform? What are some of your expectations at the current moment?
Well, it is a moment. I mean, I'm happy that we are here. It is a moment. This does feel different. This feels like maybe a tipping point. Certainly what I want to see is more than town halls, discussions, prayer vigils, marches. I would like to see concrete reforms to policing practices, whether that is a federal registry for officers who have multiple excessive force complaints, whether that is making sure that there's a transparent disciplinary process for dealing with officers who have such complaints, and making sure, quite frankly, that our officers aren't asked to be social workers and priests and guidance counselors and all that. I want to see concrete reforms going forward. I don't want, you know how we do in America. We have these tragedies, we have thoughts and prayers, and in 2 weeks, really nothing substantive has happened. I hope we're not there.
Yeah, you know, to that, I'd like to get into a couple of the things that I've been seeing going. I want your impression. So when we see cities saying, you know, for instance, Minneapolis says, we're going to work towards the dissolution of our police department. And then it comes out a day later, well, you know, it's sort of more of a goal that we're going to work towards. Or you hear politicians say we need to set up a commission or a committee. We need to have discussion and study. Do you see that as the first steps towards something substantive, or are you worried that that could be an attempt to sort of just get past the moment that we're in without any significant changing?
Talk about what? I don't know what more you need to talk about. You've seen black men unarmed on video being killed or hurt by excessive police force. I don't know what we need to have a town hall or a discussion about. This has been going on a long time. It's happened repeatedly. We need to put a stop to this, and we don't need to have a town hall or a PhD dissertation. The policies are already out there. There's 15, 20 things that are already out there that can be done. That's what we need to be working towards. I am extremely frustrated when I hear the term, let's have a committee, let's have a commission, let's have a town hall, let's have a this. We don't need that anymore. We don't need to have a town hall discussion on police brutality. We need to have actual policy changes that we already know is out there, and we need to go there. So I am certainly not one. I mean, I used to be in the legislature here in Florida, and if you want to kill something, have a committee about it.
Yeah. Delay, we certainly saw that after 2018 when there were major changes to voting in Florida, and then they've just delayed ever since then. It's a great way to stop things from changing. So you mentioned there 15 to 20 things that we know could have a significant impact. What are some of the highest on priorities on your list that you'd like to see enacted?
A federal registry that lists across the country officers with these sorts of multiple excessive force complaints. For example, I don't want an officer who has 10 excessive force complaints in Washington state to be able to come to Florida, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement or a police department or a sheriff's department in Florida doesn't know that this officer has 10 excessive force complaints and hires them to be out on the neighborhood patrol in Florida. There needs to be a national registry for these sorts of officers so states and law enforcement agencies know this, one. And then two, there needs to be a transparent disciplinary process that is not housed in the police department to deal with officers who have excessive force complaints, whether it's a civilian review board, whether it is state attorneys who are independent. We need to have some sort of independent process that we can deal with these officers. It's just happened too many times. And look, what about the times that we haven't caught this on video? What about all the George Floyds that have happened that you didn't see the 8 minutes and 46 seconds? What about the Eric Garners that we didn't see on video? What about all these countless, not only African-American men, African-American women, Breonna Taylor? What about all these people that didn't get caught on video and didn't turn into a national movement? This is a problem. It's a repeated problem. It's a problem that we need to go ahead and try to deal with. And I hope we're at the point where we're dealing with it and not trying to kind of a paralysis by analysis type deal.
Yeah. A lot of people are hearing the term qualified immunity for the first time. You are a lawyer. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's such an important part of this conversation going forward?
I mean, I'm going to oversimplify it. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to sue a police officer for something they do while they're on duty. And they have essentially qualified immunity, which gives them that sort of protection. And I think we're at a place now that the American public sees that maybe that is not appropriate. Maybe they ought to be subject to the same punishments, lawsuits, same exposure that everyone else is. And, I don't want to give the impression that I'm not sympathetic to how hard it is to be a law enforcement officer. I get it. But George Floyd is deceased. Mm-hmm. Eric Garner is deceased. It's hard to be an unarmed black man, apparently, in America as well. So we should have the same amount of sympathy for these black men who are getting killed in police custody. And yet, listen, I live in Florida, which is kind of a purple state in some places, but a very red state in others. And, we had a police department in Brevard County in Florida literally say all officers who have excessive force complaints that can't get hired, come on to Brevard County in Florida. We love our law enforcement.
Yeah.
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah, I thought about bringing that up because you mentioned, we have to have transparency across the country so that a department in one state doesn't unknowingly hire someone on who's had excessive force or, whatever. But what about the ones that knowingly do it?
That's a very good point.
Exactly. Like you'll have someone who's brutalized people, possibly killed people. They go 20 miles down the street to a different police department. Should there be some sort of ban against that sort of rehiring, the shuffling around of these bad police officers?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the 15 to 20 things that can go. You asked me my top wish list, but that's certainly one. There ought to be a point where you don't get hired anymore if you have multiple excessive force complaints. And the public needs to know who these officers are. They need to know who is policing them. They need to know that someone walking the beat has multiple excessive force complaints. They need to know this, and the politicians, the mayors and city councils that are largely over these police departments need to get serious about this. The protests across the country have also shown, protesters are literally protesting police violence and are being met with police violence.
Yeah.
What in the hell are we doing here? They're being met with military-style police equipment. They're being met with, the exact type of violence that they're protesting. And I'm sure that there are some protesters that are going too far, but I think this highlights why we're at a tipping point here and why the majority of the country thinks that we need to do something when it comes to reforming police practices.
Over the past day or two, there's been a couple pieces of, I guess, still somewhat breaking news about either bills that have been passed or being presented. I'm curious about your impression of, for instance, in New York, they apparently, I believe as of this morning, have banned chokeholds. The social media reaction I saw was largely, they were already banned. Why are you making such a big deal out of something that shouldn't have been allowed in the first place and apparently wasn't allowed? Should we consider that sort of passage? And it seems like that might be something that we might see nationally. How big of a change would that be?
It's not that big of a change. I thought chokeholds were banned after Eric Garner, so I don't know why we're banning them again, other than that the ban wasn't enforced or it wasn't treated as it should have been. Like, I want a national kind of basic police force handbook. And this is how we deal with situations nationally. This is the code of conduct nationally. So when an officer doesn't do what's in that code of conduct, they can be brought up federally as well as within their department. We need a federal type of code of conduct that is uniform, that applies to everybody. And we need that quick, fast, and in a hurry. This is not something that is a one-off situation. This is not something that is just a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Mm-hmm. This is repeated. This is happening over and over and over again. There are T-shirts and flags and signs full of names of people that have been victims of this, and we need to just get this under control. This is too much, and politicians need to look. Let me give you a juxtaposition. Did you see how fast Democrats and Republicans came together when it came to the PPP response and it came to getting loans to small businesses? Yep. It sure would be nice if politicians could move that fast so that unarmed black men weren't killed in police custody, wouldn't it?
That would be something. It would be a shock as well, but nice.
right?
Yeah. When introducing you, we mentioned that you founded an organization, People Over Profits. Can you tell us a little bit about that group?
Yeah, it is kind of goes with what's been my political career the entire time. One of the main issues that I think is facing this country is wealth and income inequality. And that inequality is at the heart of a lot of issues we have in this country. This police issue is one of them. How our neighborhoods look different in different sections, how different people make different amounts of money for the same work, how corporate overreach is just out of control with regard to corporate profits rather than working class people trying to just get through life. And, the PPP funds is another great example. Big businesses were able to get these funds at the expense of the small businesses and solo practitioners that actually needed the money. Yeah. Banks were prioritizing large businesses. No matter what happens in this country, I don't care what amount of riots, I don't care who the president is, I don't care who the Speaker of the House is, the top 1% in America are going to continue to profit and profit very well. That's something that every American ought to understand is a problem and is a distortion of our capitalistic system here in America. It should not be that way. It does not have to be that way. Working class men and women need to have the ability to live the American dream, attain the American dream. And right now it's very difficult for them, but it's very easy for the top 1% to do everything they need to do.
Yeah. Well, Sean Shaw, we certainly appreciate you joining us and talking about these very important issues. We're hopefully going to see progress soon. Perhaps we can touch base as more actual substantive changes start to be initiated. Maybe we can break those down together.
I would love to break it down and talk about it. And on the other hand, President Trump is having his first kickoff in Tulsa on Juneteenth. Now, that ought to tell you that maybe we're not as far as we think, that there's a significant portion of people in this country that refute everything that we just talked about today.
Yeah, you might be right about that. Well, thank you again. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.